Hey guys, you've heard of the Young Turks podcast because you're listening to it right now. But make sure that you subscribe and give it a 5-star rating if you like it. Thank you for listening.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first hour of the Young Turks with the legendary Jayar Jackson.
Oh, I was wondering which one was gonna get that.
Yeah, come on.
As he said legendary, I was like,
I should have said myself.
He better not go the wrong way.
Yeah, I thought it was the legendary John Iadarola.
And the beyond legendary, indeed the demigod himself, Nando Vila is here as well. Host and producer. Not generic at all, honestly.
No.
Very excited to have you both here because it's kind of a bonkers news day.
Yeah.
And you want to have the right people to break it down with. We're never gonna have that. Obviously, there's all the Bolton stuff. You know who likes talking about John Bolton? I don't know. There's gotta be somebody. I don't, but he's in the news, so we're gonna cover it. We also have the New York Times decided to dispense with the just occasional attacks against Bernie Sanders supporter. It's just front page news now.
Yeah,
front page, somebody's mean to me, front page news. So we're gonna break that down as well. And we have other stuff too. Oh, the Lev Parnas Trump tapes. He revealed, the thing about Yovanovitch.
Yeah.
He also said something about Bernie Sanders. Wait till you find out what that is. It's exciting stuff. But with that, why don't we launch into the news?
Down.
Should I plug the poll also? Okay, tyt.com/snitch. Do you think that Bolton is going to end up testifying? That way we can get some results going and we'll get to them after the first break.
I'll give you my vote soon.
Yeah?
Okay, and with that, let's jump into it. John Bolton has a book coming out in the relatively near future and he wants to get you excited about it. And so he's teased something that's gonna be revealed in it. In the manuscript, which Bolton circulated to White House officials as part of a standard pre-publication review process, Bolton described the private conversation he had with Donald Trump in August about Ukraine. Trump told Bolton that, quote, he wanted to continue freezing $391 million in security assistance to Ukraine until officials there helped with investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. So Bolton is apparently asserting in this manuscript that the quid pro quo was as laid out and clear as it could possibly be. You don't get the aid until you investigate my political rivals. That said, it is John Bolton. And so there's a lot of contextual stuff we need to take stock of. What do you both think about this?
Well, this is the evidence that Trump did the bad thing. I think we're not shocked to find out that he did the bad thing. But turns out he did do the bad thing. But again, I find it so hard to follow this impeachment story that closely because you already know the end. It's like, how can you get invested in a book, a very long book, that you already know the end? It's very difficult to really get excited about what comes next.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of the day, Trump's still gonna be the president and he's not gonna get removed. But yeah, I mean, this Bolton thing, it's about as clear as you can get. And the sad thing is that given the nature of the impeachment process and who controls the Senate, it's not gonna matter at all.
I think maybe because I gave up a long time ago on Republicans doing anything that anything to do with actually representing Americans. It's no longer disappointing. It's just now what is the strategy? And I think I mentioned it last week was so Democrats' approach has to be okay. Let the public know what's happening since Republicans don't want to hear it, and I think they've been doing pretty good at that. So when it comes to this also coming out, it doesn't really matter to me whether or not Bolton testifies. It matters to me personally, but it doesn't matter to me as far as whether or not it's gonna change anything. So I mean, I think we're gonna go into also how, oh my God, this bombshell has suddenly allowed some Republicans to be a little bit shaky in their resolve. No, it's not. No, it's not. Nothing will ever make them shaky in their resolve to continue to kneel and continue to kiss the ring of Donald Trump. It's gonna happen that way from now on. So one thing left to do is to convince the American people who are listening and not watching Fox News to see, okay, it's an indictment now of the entire party. They're covering up for it, and we're gonna illustrate to you what it is that they're covering up.
Yeah, well look, like it feels like forever ago, AOC laid out that we have to get them on the record, that we can't necessarily get them to, act like responsible politicians that give a damn about American democracy, but we can at least get them to vote, and then we can cite those votes in the future. It seems like we all three agree that not much can come out that matters because we already believe we know what happened. We don't necessarily be convinced of that. We think that the people who do need to be convinced of that can't be convinced of that. But hopefully there are some Americans that are Maybe they're not sure. If there were to be testimony, that could matter. Maybe matter insofar as it would change their opinion, not that it would necessarily change a single Republican senator's mind.
Well, the thing about impeachment, if you know that it's not going to actually happen, like if you know that Trump isn't going to actually,
at the very least.
That's what I mean. If you know that that's not going to happen, then the only point of pursuing impeachment is some sort of public education, right? To get the public aware of something that's going on. And that's why I think the Democrat strategy of narrowing the impeachment focus to this Ukraine business is so bizarre, because I mean, fundamentally, it's such a weirdly small issue compared to the vast array of crimes that are going on in the Trump administration. I mean, this Ukraine thing is like what, his like 287th worst crime, maybe? You know what I mean? Like,
I have it in the 160s.
It's in the 160s. Yeah, I mean, we could argue about that. We could spend a whole hour arguing about that, but. It's just it's bizarre to me that they didn't pursue the sort of blatant corruption, the blatant self-dealing and enrichment that Trump has used the White House to enrich himself personally.
Yeah.
And in that sense, that could have been a process that would have actually become a public spectacle. Turning this into an indictment of how the ruling class uses all kinds of self-dealing and nepotism to basically entrench its own power and privilege. Instead, this whether we withheld $300 million in Ukraine aid to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's job in Ukraine, which, by the way, is 100% corrupt. It might not be illegal, but it's 100% inappropriate and corrupt.
I think they thought that this is a very understandable, personal, obviously out of bounds thing to do.
Is it?
Conditioning.
I mean, I don't think
American
it's that
foreign
obvious.
policy on personal political gain.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time, and much worse. And there's, I mean, whether it was the Iran Contra affair, which is like
thankfully that was a big scandal.
But it didn't. It didn't become an impeachment process. Neither did Nixon's secret dealings with the Viet Cong in order to delay the peace process to help his own presidential campaign. I mean, the examples are beyond. I mean, whether it was or George W. Bush lying about Iraq. I mean, come on, like that's a billion times worse.
Sign me up for all of those.
But that was not an impeachable offense, apparently.
Yeah.
So this one is it's relatively small compared to, I don't know, using the presidency to enrich yourself personally. Like
really?
That, it's so
we've
obvious.
been hearing about
Which we'll
that
have
since
in
the
the second
beginning.
hour.
But it's not part
But
of
you
the
know what the American
impeachment
people
process.
said to that? He's a businessman. That's what he does. That's the problem. Is those things were floated, I feel like, maybe not by establishment Democrats or at least the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's of the world, but after it was floated, the American people in general, I mean, not everyone, of course, was like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's doing that, that's pretty bad. But it didn't seem to feel the sting of that as much. And I wonder if any of those would have happened. And it goes back to, all those things are very valid points, but I think it goes back to, no matter what it is, because we're gonna argue between 160 to 300 of the things he's done wrong. I forget the second number, but of those things he's done wrong, the general consensus is, I don't care, from elected Republicans and his Republican base as far as the voters. So no matter which one of these things you brought up, the same answer would have been la 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 la.
Well, I do find it interesting that it's not a big issue amongst the Democrats running for president. That it's not a big issue on the Democratic campaign trail at the moment.
Well, they're concerned about alienating potential voters because that's what election handlers like to tell you.
But this is the whole point of this is to become a political issue, right? The whole point of impeachment, if you know it's not going to actually result in impeachment or removal from office, is to make it a potent political issue for your own side to win power.
Yeah, I think that like Bloomberg has it in a lot of his ads. I think that most of the other Democrats. Exactly. Well, he's at like 9% in one of the national polls. I don't know. He'll spend another 500 million if you taunt him. So take it easy. I think that the rest of them are satisfied too for now. Well, the one I support, contrasts himself with the others by talking about what he wants to actually accomplish. But I have no doubt that if Bernie becomes the nominee and it gets the general election, he is going to be pushing the corruption angle, I think, pretty hard against Donald Trump.
I don't think that Bernie will talk about Ukraine ever in the campaign.
No, I don't think Ukraine specifically, but I think he will talk about how corrupt and lawless Donald Trump has been.
Sure.
He talks about him often as the most dishonest, worst president that we've ever had and all that. Really fast though, just to be fair, Donald Trump does say that Bolton is lying effectively, so let me give you that. I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his very public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book. I think it was at least partly to sell a book. I don't think it was only to sell a book.
Well, part of what happened, I mean, I guess a little. First of all, anytime anyone who's being accused of something, especially this president, that their response is, no, that's untrue, because if I said yes, who does that? Which person that's being brought up against these types of charges would be like, yeah, you know what? All these years I've been denying that I've done anything wrong, but that whole John Bolton thing came out. I guess you guys got me. It's never gonna happen. So a lot of times that's the basis for the defense is, well, the president said he didn't have anything to do with it, and neither did anyone else that supports him. Okay,
yeah,
I could have told you that part. So that's the defense, is just, I said so. And we're supposed to believe that.
Yeah.
So I wonder at what point people are gonna have to get beyond that, and the point of having a trial and evidence put in front of you is to determine that, rather than just believe the two sides and what they said happened.
If it's two people and they're disagreeing, hey, we got a trial. Come in, both of you under oath. You know, that's the American way. Our members are already weighing in on this with Kinetic saying if Bolton really wanted to share what he knows, he'd go on TV and tell every news station what he knows. Look, if he doesn't testify, I think that's very likely to happen. It might be on Maddow, honestly.
Bolton loves to go on TV. So he was like the most visible TV guy.
He worked for Fox News for a number of years.
So I guess I'm the pessimist here, but even if he gets subpoenaed and it somehow gets allowed for him to even testify, it's gonna be underwhelming. It always is.
Oh yeah.
Because as a lot of
the Mueller report all over again.
Yeah. So as we'll get, a lot of Republicans like to say, hey, suddenly all these libs and these progressives and Democrats suddenly love John Bolton. No, they don't. Yeah. When something comes out and the truth is there, you want that aspect to be revealed. No one's gonna say, oh yeah, man, hey, John Bolton for president, Democrats. You know, that's not gonna happen that way. So that's just something to distract from the actual the events that are going on. But if someone brings information, we wanna see it. But let's not forget, and which gives, I guess, a little bit of credence to their argument, we're going a little bit too much in on what we expect from John Bolton. He's still John Bolton. Let's not forget, he still is a member of this corrupt and self-serving Republican Party. So who knows how much of a milquetoast thing he's gonna have to say when someone asks him direct questions. He may be very evasive about it.
Yeah, well, so, okay, that's what we can expect from John Bolton. Why don't we turn now to what we can expect from Republican senators? Because there was some naysaying from Jayar earlier, so we'll turn now to that. With the John Bolton accusations out there, we turn now to the Republican Senate and see what are they gonna do about all this? And it turns out they're shaken. This is from Talking Points memo. Republican senators who have refused to allow witnesses in the Senate impeachment trial of President Donald Trump so far are reportedly shaken in their resolve after the New York Times published claims from an unpublished manuscript of Bolton's book, which contains explosive accounts of Trump's direct involvement in the quid pro quo. When they're shaken, has it ever meant anything? John McCain voted no. That was a cool moment. Justin Amash left the party. Other than that, how much has their shakenness mattered?
On the margins, it matters a little bit, but there's a little bit of a cottage industry of sort of wavering Republicans. Wavering Republicans all of a sudden become basically celebrities. I mean, who knew about Jeff Flake before he became a wavering Republican type of guy? Now he's a known guy. Mitt Romney has made his career lately about just being like the sort of anti-Trump Republican. But at the end of the day,
to the extent that that means anything.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, they support 97% of his agenda.
Yeah.
And maybe don't like that he's a gross, disgusting man, but other than that.
Yeah. Matt Gaetz, voted against him, when it came to the war powers in Iran, and that was about it. And he's paying a serious penalty for that. He was barred from being involved in the impeachment process and all that. So we'll see if he ever stands up again.
All it takes is one, and then one thing to happen where people on the Republican side will call you a rhino and kick you out of the party like they did with Justin Amash, or then praise you like they did with Murkowski and Collins. Say, oh look, these guys bucked the party because they did it 4% of the time. So then you go, they establish this positioning somehow, and then they'll continue that news cycle going of, hey, remember I'm that person who bucks the party 4% of the time, and the media laps it up. And then so that's a career move right there for them. They go, well, I'm the moderate, you guys. I'm the moderate. And it actually has nothing to do with policy, it has nothing to do with actually progressing the things that are going on.
If it comes in the form of an actual vote that matters, then I will cheer as well. If it's just, a tweet, I don't support what he's doing right now, and that's it, and then you vote to give him a Supreme Court justice or something like that.
All that is worse.
Yeah, exactly.
If you tell me I don't support what he's doing and then vote in favor of what he's doing, which one is it?
It's Susan Collins, actually. But okay, so look, there was an interesting tweet I saw from Maggie Haberman, who tweeted, per sources, some GOP senators privately pushing White House for information on who administration had visibility into the manuscript over the last month. Senators feel blindsided. And I too think, who could have predicted that Donald Trump would turn on those who had defended him? Like seriously. I hate all of you, and I've been saying he's going to turn on you.
I'm amazed at how
much
much
the most predictable thing.
Yeah, how much they don't realize it. It's happened over and over and over again. And again, I've talked about this. Isn't new. It's not even new within the last 3 years of his presidency. It's been his entire life. He's screwed over people from terms of business dealings to paying employees, all these things. He's done it since the beginning. That's his MO. That's how he operates. So when you come in and say, I'm gonna pledge my loyalty to Donald Trump, and then he doesn't pledge it back because this happened during the primaries in 2016, didn't it? When they said, we're gonna vow to make sure we support whatever Republican nominee there is, and all 27 of them raised their hand, 26 out of 27, and Trump is like,
yeah.
He's telling you over and over again who he is, but they're surprised still.
So supposedly they're shaken, but let's go to some specific examples and see how shaken they are. So let's see, Mark Meadows said Republicans that break with Trump on impeachment may face, quote, repercussions.
Well, yeah, again, if you look at, it all comes down to this at the end of the day. If you look at Republican voters, they still support Trump overwhelmingly, mid 90% approval rating amongst Republicans. And at the end, the lesson that a lot of Republican politicians took after the Tea Party wave is that getting primaried is much worse than facing a tough Democrat in a general election. That they are more vulnerable from their right in a primary than they are in a general election against a Democrat. So as long as that's the reality, they're gonna waver and get shaken all they want, but they'll fall in line with his agenda. Again, 97%, maybe in one or two very kind of idiosyncratic places you might find a Republican who breaks with Trump, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of them, or the overwhelming majority of them, are gonna fall in line.
Yeah, well, perhaps maybe Utah is the place.
Yes.
Okay, so we got a quote from Mitt Romney. It's increasingly apparent it would be important to hear from John Bolton. I, of course, will make a final decision on witnesses after we've heard from not only the prosecution, but also the defense. But I think at this stage, it's pretty fair to say that John Bolton has a relevant testimony. I think it's increasingly likely that other Republicans will join those of us who think we should hear from John Bolton.
Yeah, I don't know that Mitt Romney really has his ear to the pulse of the rest of the Republican Party. I mean, he's famous for being not sort of the most in tune with the rest of the Republican Party type of guy. That's his whole brand, So this idea that he's going to find a bunch of Republicans to break, I don't know. I find Mitt Romney being a little overly ambitious here.
That's Mitt Romney answering the question because he has to right now, but stalling for time. Be like, hey, after this all happens, you guys ask me again. I'm gonna go back and get some more marching orders and see exactly how we should do this. Because by the way, you know who has been responding to this? This Bolton, the Bolton revelations through the excerpts from the book is Democrats, Democratic elected officials, liberals all over the place. None of these Republican senators, at least last I read, responding to the fact that these things are coming out. Because what they're doing is trying to huddle and figure out which way we're gonna approach this next, because we can't have any factions here.
So you say that, but what if I had a second Republican senator?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Susan Collins said the reports, quote, strengthen the case for witnesses and have prompted a number of conversations among my colleagues.
Yeah. Conversations about, hey, so I'm going to Subway. Do you want the BLT or do you want the turkey sandwich? It's all that. These are the conversations.
How many senators do they need?
4 to vote for witnesses, which doesn't necessarily even guarantee any particular witness.
Yeah.
But supposedly, anyway, like. It's almost too much that it's Susan Collins. It's like, hey everybody, look at me.
Absolutely.
I might be reasonable. And I saw a random comment. It was a quote from John Oliver, which means it's time for the Democrats' favorite game. Hope Susan Collins flips and be disappointed when she doesn't. It's America's most depressing game show. Yeah, like she's already had multiple chances to do the right thing, and when it mattered most, she didn't do it. She did what she thought, I guess, would keep her seat. Yeah. And she will probably continue to do that same thing.
And see how she's even with the vote of whether or not we're going to have before we got to the actual opening statements, the opening discussion about what was going to happen. Then there's also the worries. I'm like, well, I want to let you guys know that I'm still that centrist. It's to continue to let that one point in every once in a while to remind it, hey, I'm still wavering. I'm not sure. We don't need to hear that right now.
It speaks to a broader philosophical difference between Democrats and Republicans in that Democrats are constantly hoping for Republicans to do the right thing, right? That's their governing strategy. We'll just do something that makes them look so bad that some of them will have to do the right thing and defect to our side or something like that. Whereas Republicans have defined their entire governing strategy in how they can exercise power in very significant and violent ways without any Democratic support. And they do all kinds of things in order to do that, whether it's gerrymandering or whether it's stripping powers from governors that become Democrat, whatever. They do all kinds of things to be able to exercise power without having a single Democrat support them. Whereas Democrats are just constantly trying to exercise power to the extent that they do, because they don't often exercise power, but with only as if they can get Republicans on board. If not, they're not interested in exercising power.
A good illustration of that is the way that they're saying this is not, when it was still in the House, this is not a bipartisan hearing. No Republicans have jumped on board. Therefore, this Democratic, their whole case is null and void. No one's making the argument, hey, this is not a bipartisan thing because Republicans refuse to listen to the truth, obvious truth, right in their faces. So the onus comes on Democrats to convince Republicans who've told you, you're not gonna convince me to come over to your side. So now it's Democrats' fault because of the stubbornness of a party, and the pressure never goes that way.
Yeah. Look, there is one other aspect on this. It is how is right-wing media going to spin the new revelations? We will have that for you.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be. Featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity, the UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the first hour with Nando, Jayar, and myself. Before we jump back into the news, I wanted to read a few of these comments. James left a member comment, Nando, just what my Monday needed. And I assume not sarcastic.
No.
I think it was serious.
Yeah.
So that is definitely good. Disappointed Marlon Bundo says, shaken for a Republican is a feeling. Like indigestion, it soon passes. That is true. Let's see. Seth Jones says, at this point, I put more faith in God than I do Susan Collins, and I'm a giant long-term atheist. That is definitely a good point. Eddie O'Donnell on hashtag TYT Live said, yeah, but Nando, what you're missing with this, and I think he understands that you don't actually miss it, is that it was a crime against Joe Biden, and therefore the establishment Democrats in the House had to act. The rest of his crimes benefit most of their donors.
That's a good point.
That's certainly a consideration as well. And with that, why don't we jump into the last little bit we have to cover on this whole John Bolton thing. So far, it doesn't seem like many Republican senators are taking John Bolton's accusations very seriously, but there is the possibility that Republican voters will take it seriously. But for that to happen, it first has to be filtered through the digestive tract of Fox News. So let's see what their take is on this whole thing. First, the most important news show on the face of the earth, Fox and Friends.
If John Bolton's lawyers are telling the truth here and they just submitted it in and it's leaked out, if that is indeed the case, more evidence that people within the administration are actually against the administration. And the other thing is devastating timing, because this thing was on the fast track to closing out without witnesses on Friday. Right. Only Mitt Romney pretty much saying, I want to see witnesses. Everybody else saying, I've heard enough. And now this gives fuel to the Senator Schumers of the world, the Adam Schiffs of the world to say, I need a witness, and he wants to testify.
But when you say devastating timing, it's got to be a coincidence, right? That it would come out just hours before the Senate impeachment is going to start at 1 o'clock.
What I love about that is you get so much deception on Fox News that when they're honest, and only like the simplest ones, like he's like, it's devastating timing. We were almost done with this. Like he's being honest.
Well, yeah,
he really thought that they were almost done with it.
They're admitting that they're just basically trying to cover up the crime.
Yeah.
And that this pesky little John Bolton guy or someone within the administration is not helping them cover up the crime. Mm-hmm. Like it's blatant. Like I mean, you gotta admire it, to be honest. I mean, and you know what the sad reality is, that they're probably right in that people don't care. Like they don't care about whether he did the crime or not. They care about whether he can get away with it. Mm-hmm. And this is just they're just laying it out perfectly.
Mm-hmm. It's like, and I hate to keep referring back to this, but it's like the cheating scandal happened in baseball, right? Yeah. So there's guys on the team that are no longer on the team that then told, call him a whistleblower. So afterwards, some people were upset at the pitcher from that team that decided to tell about what was going on, and like, hey, he played with those guys. He was in practice with those guys. He went in the trenches with those guys. They won a championship together. They gritted it out. How dare he flip on them? Mm-hmm. That's sports, bro.
Yeah.
This is something completely different, but that's our problem. Again, maybe the 700th time I'll say it. We take politics in this country from a general voter's perspective as being something that we do like it's a sporting event.
It's entertainment. It's the reality TV show that we watch every day. We have our little cast of characters, and we like these guys, and we want those guys to win and those guys to lose. That's what this is, and that's what most of politics is, sadly, in this country.
Yeah. The sports analogy is so robust, and it frustrates me because it's the analogy I want to be true least. Like if it was we treat politics like we treat board games, I would be like set. I'm ready to go political commentary. Not so much with the sports thing, but it's totally true. In sports, as in politics, if the crime they were trying to commit was to win, and all you want is for them to win, you're kind of not going to take it that seriously. Like, yes, and with Trump, it's like, yeah, he wants to win so that he can protect me, so he's willing to do anything, including break the rules. I want him to do that. That's how much he cares about protecting me. If you're deluded, that can make sense. Now, what's interesting is that with Kilmeade right there, he was sort of honest. They're not even trying to hide that they just want to cover up, and that is going to hold true as well with Rush Limbaugh. So before we get to that, though, first of all, here is Rush Limbaugh's frustration with the fact that John Bolton is now being not even defended, but just talked about by people who traditionally don't like him.
Something else that's not on anybody's mind is John Bolton. Most people don't know who he is, especially with all the coverage of the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash. But even before that, when Bolton's name was in the media, they hated him. They despised Bolton. They hated Bolton's mustache, folks. They hated Bolton because they thought he mistreated women. He was a bully in the workplace. Whenever any Republican wanted John Bolton in the ambassadorial service or anywhere in the national security apparatus, the Democrat Party went literally bat crazy because they hated the guy. And they hated the guy because he was a hawk. They hated the guy because he was aligned with the neocons.
He wasn't aligned with the neocons. He was a neocon. And yes, I hate him
of the neocon.
I hate him because he was a hawk, But like that word is pulling a lot of weight there. He's not a bird. He wanted us to go to war with virtually every country on the planet. He wanted us to nuke North Korea. He wants war with Iran. These are not small disagreements. They're significant. Millions of lives are on the line. He also, in terms of like, they had an issue with him being part of our ambassadorial squad or whatever. Yeah, he made a joke about blowing up the UN. That should be disqualifying, I think.
John Bolton was single-handedly responsible when he was a member of the Bush administration for scuttling peace with North Korea, which was this close to happening. And John Bolton made it his personal mission to block that peace agreement that Clinton had more or less agreed upon with North Korea. So yeah,
see, this is one of your petty issues with him.
Like whatever, who cares? The peace in the Korean Peninsula is something that would be a world historic event. It's just a little disagreement.
Yeah,
it's a consistent move, and we talked about how Sean Hannity was listing Trump's accomplishments, scrolling them during last week's impeachment hearing. So then, of course, it is the same thing. If you list someone's accomplishments, and if you listen closely, it's all about the tone. So for many of his listeners who are listening, like, yeah, look at all those things that they hated John Bolton for. But if you listen to what those things were, instead of being like an empty-minded listener here, you'd be like, yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh yeah, he did that too. Man, maybe these Democrats and libs were onto something and hating this guy.
Yeah.
Because all those things are not good.
Now, I did say that we're gonna have him being totally honest, and we do have that. For the first time ever, Rush Limbaugh is going to be honest on his show. Take a look at how little he cares about the truth in what actually happened with Trump and Ukraine.
So I've had dinner with John Bolton a couple times. I've met him 2 or 3 times. And if this passage in the book is true, and this is actually what he's intending, it's not the John Bolton I thought I knew. This kind of disloyalty. And you may say, well, Rush is not disloyal. He's simply telling the truth. The president didn't want to give him. Yeah, but it is disloyal.
The truth, what actually happened, reflection of objective reality. I care about loyalty more. That's the most honest I've ever seen him be.
And you know what? He's right in that most people don't actually care about corruption. Like they obviously say they do care about corruption, but they don't care about corruption so long as the person who is doing the corruption is on their side, right? Or perceived to be on their side. I mean, I think most people assume that politicians are corrupt. I think most people assume that politicians enrich themselves in all manner of ways. But as long as the politician can signal that, I'm doing all the bad stuff, but I'm on your side. I'm looking out for your interests. Most people are okay with that.
It's part of the mask that we've allowed to be unveiled here. It's like, hey, I can go ahead and say, who cares about the truth? Literally, that's all they said. Yeah, sure, you're gonna say he uncovered the truth, but who cares about that? And then people will nod their heads and continue to let it go. I don't know how to undo it, but we're not getting there anymore.
Lyndon Johnson became a politician as one of the poorest people to ever get involved in politics, and left as when he stopped being president, he was a multimillionaire. He was hideously corrupt, but he kept on winning elections because he told the people in the Hill Country in Texas, where he was from, that I brought electricity to the Hill Country, and that guaranteed a victory in every single one of his elections, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so because he could signal, listen, yeah, those guys are saying that I'm enriching myself, and don't listen to them. I brought you electricity.
Yeah.
And that works. It really does.
And this is some of the problems. I'm sorry, there was some Republican politician, I think he's a senator, who also threatened and said, hey, they can call some witnesses, but we're gonna call Biden, and we're gonna call Hunter, and then we're gonna call Joe, and then we're gonna call Hillary, and then we're gonna call Obama. This was literally said on Fox News, and this is why this shows where their mindset comes from. They think that means Democrats or libs are gonna go, oh, man, don't do that. You know who's not my father? Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. I don't care if they did something, which is completely unrelated to this. I don't care if you go after them, go after them. If you go after everyone else, but you think this is some kind of thing where libs wanna just hold on because that's what you do, is no matter what my guy's done, it's okay with me. Yeah. Again, you can keep coming back and saying, well, what if we come after your guys? Hey, my father's name is Don Jackson. He's not up for any kind of investigation, so I don't mind.
But what if he was? We're gonna look into you. Oh, we can't send Ken Klippenstein anymore. Damn. Okay, so finally on this, those FOIAs would have come fast.
Yeah. Was it Ken Krasenstein?
Exactly. Yeah. You got it right there. So TYT.com/snitch. Do you think enough Republicans will defect to make Bolton testify? We'll give you updates on that a little bit later on. And you're seeing it right there. Super easy. You click yes, you click no. It couldn't be any easier. There's no maybe, okay? Take a stand for once in your life.
No comment, maybe. I don't have enough information to
have
an answer.
Just think about it. Go to tyt.com/snitch. And with that, why don't we turn to something very different? Okay, I was prepared for the wrong story. Apparently we're talking about Mike Pompeo. I was all excited to talk about Bernie. So let's do that then. Mike Pompeo recently had a very public meltdown, of which we have some of the audio, during an interview with NPR reporter Mary Louise Kelly. So she asked him some pretty tough questions about Ukraine, and he did not like it. So why don't we jump to that first video? You'll see and get an idea of what I'm talking about.
People who work for you in your department, people who have resigned from this department under your leadership, saying you should stand up.
Well, I don't know.
For the diplomats who work here.
I don't know who these unnamed sources are you're referring to. I can tell you this:
these are not unnamed sources. This is your senior advisor, Michael McKinley, a career Foreign Service officer with 4 decades experience, who testified under oath that he resigned in part due to the failure of the State Department to offer support to Foreign Service employees caught up in the impeachment inquiry on Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on things that Mr. McKinley may have said. I'll say only this: I have defended every State Department official. We've built a great team. The team that works here is doing amazing work around the world.
Where have you defended Marie Yovanovitch?
I've defended every single person on this team. I've done what's right for every single person on this team.
Can you point me toward your remarks where you have defended Marie Yovanovitch?
I've said all I'm going to say today. Thank you.
So yeah, the thing is, Yovanovitch, obviously she was ousted after like a Rudy Giuliani-led partisan Fruman sort of scheme to get Trump to hate her. And along the way, might have been spied upon, stalked, and there might have been a plan to potentially assassinate her. And he can't even pretend to care about that. No. And so great follow-up questions there. Yep. He is not as smart as he thinks he is. His ability to navigate that sort of interaction, he's just not as quick-witted, as clever as he thinks he is. And in the end, he apparently went crazy. We're gonna have a little bit more, and I'll let you guys get in.
Well, the problem is they're used to just saying something that's very surface, and then media members or anyone else just listens to them and moves on. And then so when they get a follow-up, or then they said, I can throw this at them, and they won't have any answer to it. But the preparation for, okay, I need to prep for how this person is gonna lie because they are a well-known liar. So she had information readily available for him to say, I don't know who these unnamed sources are. I have a name for you. So then after that, then it's like, well, I'm not gonna talk about that, what he may have said. It continues down this line of denying the reality of the situation. So then that's where you'll get to where the anger comes from. It comes to now, how dare you hold me accountable? I'm Mike Pompeo, which by the way, the same Mike Pompeo, according to the releases from Bolton's book, was one of the 2 or 3 guys that was telling Trump, hey, what are you doing with this whole Ukraine holding up of aid? This guy, this way, he's one of them. He's one of them who said, hey, Donald, you might wanna, what are you doing? And he had to answer to it, now he's gotta defend it. So it's even harder for someone to lie for a guy who they were trying to stop from doing what they have to now lie about. So he's getting mad.
Yeah. Mike Pompeo is underrated as like one of the biggest psychopaths in the entire Trump administration. I mean, he is like one of these like blood and soil, America's involved in a holy war against the evil Muslims. Like he believes like in an American jihad, 100%. And he's used to going on all these like insane right-wing shows all the time. And that was like his favorite thing to do, to go on like Frank Gaffney's show and Rush Limbaugh, whatever. So like the fact that he goes on NPR and gets, again, like credit to the NPR reporter, but it's not like it wasn't the toughest interview I've ever seen in my life. And he just has an absolute meltdown at the lightest pushback. It's just, frankly, you'll have to see it.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think that because he stands next to Trump, we think, oh, Mike Pompeo, maybe not so bad. But like, no, he's a really bad guy. And honestly, like, there's different types of Republicans, obviously, but like his type reminds you that like the Rex Tillerson, I'm just in this to make a quick buck thing. There's worse.
Yeah, this guy is a true believer. This guy is a blood and soil. Let's just kill them all.
Yeah, Tillerson just wants the oil in the soil. He's not so much. He doesn't want to invest it with blood. Now, as a result of the sort of interactions you saw, a question specifically about whether he owes an apology to Marie Yovanovitch. According to Kelly, he shouted at me for about the same time as the 9-minute interview itself had lasted. This is later in his room. He was not happy to have been questioned about Ukraine. He asked, do you think Americans care about Ukraine? He used the F word in that sentence and many others. And then this is where it gets funny. He asked if I could find Ukraine on a map. I said yes. He called out for his aides to bring him a map of the world with no writing, no countries marked. I pointed to Ukraine. He put the map away. He said, people will hear about this.
No, they won't. No, they will from her telling the story.
Bless the polite NPR people that the thing that they're outraged by is that he used the F word.
It's naughty.
F word, guys. In that sentence and others.
Yeah, more than one time.
I just love the idea that he like turns to his aides, get the map. And the aides just like, God, I can't go one day without the map.
Well, I'm sorry. This is one of those things where you should take some cues. So if you're gonna challenge someone and say, "Hey, I bet you can't find a rock on a map," and then someone goes, "Okay," that's when you go, "That was a little bit too confident. I think I'm gonna stop right here and go, okay, well, sure you can find it. Just believe them." Because if you go to the step of making them prove it, now you're in a complete corner and you have to go, somebody's gonna hear about this. Which, by the way, I think we mentioned this before. Hey, let's go ahead and have old Donnie find Ukraine on a map and see if he can pull that feat off. He's asking that question because the people he's surrounded by can't do it.
Yeah. Let's see if Donald Trump can sing the national anthem. There's like, if I had a chance to interview Trump, that's like the first thing I would ask him.
That's way too tough.
Gotcha.
He was in an interview and he was asked, they said, "You're a big Bible guy, right?" And he's like, "Yes." They were like, "So which do you like better, the old or the new?" And he was like, "Both." You can't pick a testament?
Yeah, just pick one, who cares?
Like, American Christians will be fine with either, really. Like, you're on the new, but you could do either.
There was, I'm sorry, last thing, John, I'm sorry, because there was something, the way that came off, I wish we could have seen or heard the way the map discussion came. It's like, I've heard about these stories of people that get into fights, and the guy you don't want to get in a fight with is the one who's quiet and calm. The one who's all up, throwing his hands around and ready to push, ready to fight, that guy, it's okay to fight him. The one who, when somebody says, "Hey, you want to go outside?" He goes, "Okay." You go, maybe we shouldn't go outside. This is way too much of a routine.
Yeah, the loud guy's like, yeah, if it wasn't for, I got like a shoulder injury in my basketball game last week, I would kick your ass. Then like tell your cousin to like hold me back.
The guy who's ready, quietly ready, is the one you don't want to mess with.
He's the guy that leave you like bloody on the floor saying, "People will hear of this." So, okay, he also put out a public statement after this, and I'm not gonna read the entire thing, I'm gonna skim it, but he said, "NPR reporter Mary Louise Kelly lied to me twice. First last month in setting up our interview, and then again yesterday in agreeing to have our post-interview conversation off the record. She apparently did neither of those things. We have some receipts on that as well. It is shameful that this reporter chose to violate the basic rules of journalism and decency and then insert a bunch of stuff attacking the media, but the important thing is at the bottom. It is worth noting that Bangladesh is not Ukraine."
Whoa.
Which is the sort of, like general factoid that you would tweet or something. But no, there he specifically means the map thing, she got it wrong and she pointed to Bangladesh. Which, just in case you're not like up on your geography, I Google Maps'd it. They're pretty far apart. Now, yes, some people might still make a mistake there, but probably not someone with a master's degree in European studies from Cambridge University. I think she probably got it. What a ridiculous claim to make. What a laughable. It should be below anyone in government service, particularly someone who's working for Donald Trump.
I just find it hilarious also, like Mike Pompeo defending the sacred rules of journalism.
Oh
no, not the rules of journalism.
Decency and honesty. Keep it real.
Well, you said back in the day he would always be on like journalistic enterprises like Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Like he cares about it. Okay, we do have to take another break though. Stick around after this. Front page news. Bernie's got some bros, so the New York Times isn't standing for it any longer.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your active ID more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the first hour with Jayar and Nando and myself. Let's see. We do have a lot to get to, but I want to read some of these, including a member comment from Deanna Zed, who says, longtime viewer, new member, shout out from Montreal.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing like TYT here. Maybe I should start TYT Canada. I appreciate you all.
Do it.
I appreciate you too. Let's see. Orpheus. So does Pompeo think Bangladesh is where Ukraine is? He's smart enough. He could point to it, right?
No.
No, you don't think so? Really?
No.
He travels enough. He has to.
No.
Right?
Guaranteed. I'll bet anything in my life that he could not, in a pinch, put like
what if
Poland
you let
on a map or
Bangladesh
or like the Central Africa. No, no way, no way.
Okay, that'll be a new poll. I really like this comment.
I'm convinced just from the way you said it.
No way.
I completely disagree with you
How
until
much
you
money
came
would
out
you
that
bet?
strong with it.
What?
Bet $1,000?
I would. If I had $1,000, yeah.
Okay, so at hashtag TYT Live, we've been getting some great tweets, and one I just have to read from Axtimus Prime, who said, I think TYT should hang Ken Klippenstein's lavender sweater from the ceiling like a retired jersey.
Bro, listen, I'm telling you, I was gonna interrupt you if you didn't get to that and read it because I saw that one too. Good handle, good tweet from Quantum Guillotine Wolf. That was an awesome good handle too.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if anything's going around. If you think there's like any bad thoughts with like us and Ken, no.
He's a traitor.
Love that guy.
He's a traitor.
Hey,
yeah, he's also a traitor. He's a traitor.
He deserves every bad thing that happens to him.
Just as long as we should know, in order for us to hang it, Ken has to send it to us. So first I'll pressure him to send the purple sweater.
Do a
and number two,
fundraising
in order
drive
for us to hang it. And also maybe it's his power cloak. Maybe he can't work the same without it.
That's true. Oh, maybe we should find out. Yes, but please tweet to Ken to send us his clothing. Not just the sweater. Okay, but this is the best story of the day. So we have to jump back to the news, unfortunately. Bernie Sanders has this massive online following, which seems like it would be a good thing, but the front page of the New York Times told me that was not the case today. In one of many articles over the past week or so attacking his online supporters, they went in depth into the bros. We're not gonna read you the whole thing. It's very, very long, and you should go do that, but we're gonna give you a taste of what happened on there. So he said, since the start of Mr. Sanders' first presidential campaign in 2016, his colossal online support base has been by turns a source of peerless strength and perpetual aggravation. Envied and caricatured by rivals who covet such loyalty, feared by Democrats who have faced harassment from his followers, and alternately cherished and gently scolded by the candidate himself. As Mr. Sanders moves to position himself as a standard bearer for a party he has criticized from the left for decades, the power of his internet army has also alarmed Democrats who are familiar with its underside, experienced in ways large and small. So then they begin to go through, look, I'm gonna keep it real, tweets that they got.
Yeah.
Like there was a person who was mean on Twitter, like updates at 9. Yes, there are mean people on Twitter. Some of them are tweeting at me right now.
Yeah, go through Anna Kasparian's mentions on any given day.
I can't, I'll lose it.
Yeah.
But look, we're gonna read more. I want your general thoughts about the fact that the New York Times apparently is like, it's effectively knives out. A little bit against Bernie, certainly. And Jennifer Rubin had this op-ed today saying that he's running a Trump-like campaign, but against anyone.
You mean the guy who won?
Exactly.
The campaign of the guy who won the presidency?
Yeah.
Oh, well, God forbid.
But against his supporters too. Like it's beyond just the sort of condescending smear of the bro thing. It is full lengthy articles with multiple bylines on it, attacking his supporters.
Do you think it is a coincidence, John, that the latest polling out of Iowa has Bernie up 9 points and that we are seeing this rash of anti-Bernie bro pieces at the same exact time? Do you think that is a coincidence?
I think the chances that it's a coincidence is as high as the chance that Pompeo could point out
Ukraine on a map.
Djibouti on a map. Yes,
exactly.
No, I do not think at all. And the thing that bothers me so much is, almost all of these attack pieces, they're supposedly their concern, that's always expressed at some point in the piece, usually about halfway down, sometimes near the end, and the big issue is that his supporters are hurting unity and they're attacking other candidates. And Bernie himself is not showing unity because he's attacking other candidates. And here's 3,000 words about why he's Trump. Basically, every one of them is, how could you possibly attack a candidate who could become the next nominee, and we're gonna shred you over it?
You know, Adam Gaffney had a good tweet that was like, you know, say I went online and wrote a big thing about how Star Wars is 1 billion times better than Star Trek. And then a bunch of Star Trek fans said that they disagreed with me and were angry with me online. And then I could say, look, obviously Star Trek fans are meaner than Star Wars fans. You know, like, well, yeah, because if you talk crap about the thing that they like, they're gonna be mad at you, not the other way around. And you know, the broader thing that's going on with this whole Bernie Bro narrative, and it's fundamentally a case where for so long, the left in the United States has been so dormant that liberals have been used to fighting only with Republicans. Like, they are used to fighting to their right. They have developed that muscle to their right. You know, and a big part of the liberal self-conception is that those are the big bad Republicans on the right. They're evil, and it gives them a sense of moral superiority. When they get attacked from the left, it's like, oh my God, this is a new thing that I'm not used to. It's a thing that I've never had to deal with in the past. And for starters, it challenges my own moral superiority or sense of moral superiority. So that's why they have this collective freak out. They're like, we don't know how to deal with this. We don't know what this new thing is. And it's gotta be this new toxic thing that I can't, you know, that has to be destroyed, because it's something that's completely new to them. And in the New York Times piece, they actually allude to that Bernie has been criticizing the Democratic Party from the left for decades. That didn't register to most liberals forever because Bernie was a relatively obscure figure and didn't have any sort of real base of support outside of Vermont. But now that he does, it's this new thing that they're just not used to. So that's fundamentally what's happening.
Well, I mean, we always complain, primarily Cenk does, about how Democrats don't do anything. There's not enough fires, not enough anger, and it does too. So when it comes to these types of things, when they actually are coming, as you mentioned, it's not comfortable and it's not normal to them. So when you start seeing fire and anger from the left of a certain segment of the party, they think, man, I only hear this usually from the right, as you mentioned. But the thing is, when it comes also with policy behind it and anger because of how you're muting that or misinterpreting or mischaracterizing all that, that part gets ignored because we don't want to address the policy problems that we have. Let's address the way that they're talking to me, which then comes the complaint, or at least the comparison about how he's running a Trump-like a campaign. If he's running a Trump-like campaign, he has to be at rallies going, that's right, every Hillary supporter I've seen here, get her the hell out of here. Like, at least in 2016, or even now, to come after people's support groups. So when someone comes along, there's a part of this, again, like you mentioned, a very long article where people that are supporters of Sanders are saying you can't control these folks. And as we've seen, there are annoying supporters of every candidate. Of course there are, because that's where annoying people are online. So that's where they're allowed to just say whatever they want without having much of a responsibility to take over what they've said. You have to understand that's the nature of the game, and when I don't want to deal with it, I don't go.
Annoying people from from when humanity descended from the trees, they sat around for 100,000 years being bored, and then Twitter was created, and then suddenly they had something to do. And here's the thing: there are examples here of feminist authors getting death threats and things like that. A lot of examples like that. Obviously, all of that is 100% unacceptable. And if you are a Bernie Sanders supporter and you're doing that sort of thing, you need to seriously think about whether you hold the values you think you hold. But if you are anyone, don't do that. And I got news for you, it is all over the place. I've received death threats, Anna receives 100 times as many death threats. Awful people should stop being awful. But I got news for you, when we assert that there's bad people all over, I can also say, but Bernie Sanders supporters in general are better in these ways. And I say that as a direct result of polling that I've seen. When they asked back in 2016, the supporters of a bunch of different candidates on the left and on the right, they asked them questions intended to measure things like misogyny and racism. They asked them questions like, are black Americans lazier than white Americans? Are black Americans more criminal than white Americans? And I got news for you. Everyone in America is racist, but the supporters of different candidates were different. Now, the Republicans were the worst, and then there was like the Clinton supporters, And then there was the Bernie supporters. Still too high, still unacceptable, but better on all of these measures than other Democrats who were supporting people like Hillary Clinton. And at the very least, think about that a little bit before you try to make your entire counterattack to Bernie Sanders based around the fact that, like in your analogy about Star Trek, not just that Star Trek fans are worse, but Jean-Luc Picard is worse. Right. Patrick Stewart, the Sir, he's worse.
Now, okay, all of us are old enough to remember the 2008 primary, right? We're all in our 30s or close to it. And if you remember the 2008 primary, there's a lot of like rose-tinted goggles looking back at that time, because that campaign between Obama and Hillary was absolutely vicious. I mean, far more vicious than anything that's been going on both in 2016 and now in 2020 in the Democratic primary. That campaign, the Hillary campaign through Sidney Blumenthal released the photo of Barack Obama in Muslim garb. The implication being like, look at this radical Muslim guy. Like, you want to vote for that guy? You know, there was when Hillary said that, you know, wondered out loud whether Obama was going to get assassinated or not. That's why she was staying in the primary. I mean, just insanely vicious things going on. And at that time, you were seeing almost verbatim the same exact articles that you're seeing against the Bernie bros about the so-called Obama bros that were more online than the Hillary supporters, that were, you know, more misogynistic toward Hillary supporters. All these things, you could just switch out the term Obama and sub it in for Bernie, and it's the exact same article.
Yeah. Now that said, if you feel the inclination to send basically any negative thought, think about whether you need to do it.
Send it to Ken
violent,
Klippenstein.
Send it to Ken Klippenstein. Yeah, if it's sexual, if it's violent, just don't do it. Whether you support Sanders or Yang or Ted Cruz or whoever, let's all try to be a little bit less awful online. It's not gonna stop the New York Times from writing 100 more pieces like this between now and Super Tuesday, but it will make the environment that many of us are obligated to dwell in a little bit more positive.
As the one, sorry, we're going over, but the one line of thought I always have whenever it comes to something that comes out about a candidate that isn't about their policy or what they're gonna do for or against the country is these things that I'm hearing. Will it change what they promise they'll do? Will it change Bernie's push for universal health care? Will it change his push for college, for people's tuitions to change, for free college for everyone? Will any of those things change because of what his supporters, some of them, are doing? If you're upset because of his supporters, be upset at his supporters. I have nothing wrong with that, or fighting back or saying, can you believe these idiots are doing this online? Voice it, call them out, put them on blast. I don't care. Again, they're not my father. So whatever it is, just do it. Like, I don't have any love for anybody who does filthy things online. So we're not looking to protect anyone like that. But if your reason for leaving a candidate's, his base is based off of what other people are doing and has nothing to do with policy, you didn't really believe it in the first place.
Yeah. And you can enjoy the most recent Star Wars movie and still be excited that Picard is on the air.
The new Star Wars movie sucked. Come on, John.
It was fine.
It sucked.
It was
terrible.
It was fine.
It was the most cynical thing I've ever seen.
Go watch The Mandalorian. How about
that? Was pretty good.
Hey,
it's okay.
Shake on it.
Yeah.
Mandalorian.
See, you know, civility.
Unity, okay? Anyway, thank you, Jayar. Thank you, Nando. Always great to have you on. We've got an awesome hour coming up. You just have to get past this.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.